In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome to part 2 of my Hajj, a step-by-step guide to Hajj and Umrah. My name is Saad from the Wahi Project, and I'm joined by Ismail Davids from Amid Inspirations. And we're honored to continue our journey with you exploring Hajj and Umrah. In part 1 of this series, we provided a quick introduction to Hajj, discussing basic definitions, describing what it is, why we should go, when it occurs, and where it is held. Now in this part 2, we'll provide an overview of the entire Hajj and Umrah from start to finish, covering the geographical locations involved and the actual steps required. To accomplish this, we'll be providing you with a lot of information over the next few screens, and you might feel slightly overwhelmed. But don't worry, the aim is to provide a high-level overview similar to the picture of a complete jigsaw puzzle. Then over the remaining parts of this series, we'll break this into individual pieces, discuss it in detail, and then at the end, bring them back together to complete the entire picture. So now, the overview. A quick note first though. The details that will be presented are for the Tamattu method of Hajj. For the majority of pilgrims, this will be the method of Hajj that you'll be performing. But if you need information on the other methods, for instance, Ifrad or Quran, please refer to the references provided in part 1. So without further ado, let's dive into the overview. First, let's have a look at the different places involved in Hajj. At this stage, let's not worry about what we do at each of the places, which we'll be discussing later, but rather understand where we go and in which order. Hajj is performed in Makkah and its immediate surrounds, which include Mina, Muzdalifah, and Arafah. The pilgrim will initially arrive in Makkah, and this is where they perform Umrah. As mentioned in the previous part, Umrah is performed in its entirety within the confines of Masjid al-Haram. After Umrah, the pilgrim will generally remain within the Makkah area and wait for Hajj to start. Now, do you remember where Hajj starts? Hajj starts on the 8th of Zulhijjah, which is day 1 of Hajj. On this day, the pilgrim will move from wherever they are in Makkah to Mina. And that's pretty much it for this day. Then on day 2 of Hajj, the 9th of Zulhijjah, the pilgrim will travel from Mina to Arafah after sunrise, spend the day in Arafah, and then make their way from Arafah to Muzdalifah after sunset, spending the night in Muzdalifah. Day 3 of Hajj, the 10th of Zulhijjah, is one of the busiest. Starting shortly before the sunset, the pilgrim will head from Muzdalifah to the Big Jamrah in Mina. From here, they will travel to Masjid al-Haram in Makkah, where several rites will be performed. Following this, pilgrims will then head back to Mina to spend the night. The next 2 to 3 days, the 11th, 12th, and optional 13th of Zulhijjah, involve spending time in Mina and visiting the Jamrah sites, which are the pillars for stoning. Once these days are complete, the pilgrim will head back to Mecca, and after performing the last rites, will exit the city to start the journey back home. Did you get all of that? Don't worry if it seems confusing. It'll be a lot clearer soon. Now that we've seen all the places involved in Hajj, let's have a look at these locations on a real map. Here's a satellite image of Makkah and its immediate surrounds. Central Makkah and Masjid al-Haram are here on the left side. The area being highlighted is Mina. This area is Muzdalifah. And this is Arafah. As you can see, the boundaries of Arafah do not necessarily follow the roads around it. Now that we've identified the important areas, let's look at some of the major landmarks. The Kaaba, which is located inside Masjid al-Haram, is here. The Jamrah, or the 3 pillars for stoning, are located here, right on the boundary of Mina. The Mount of Arafah, also referred to as the Mount of Mercy or Jabal al-Rahmah, is here. These are the major landmarks involved in Hajj. But the area is so rich in history, there are a number of other smaller places of interest worth noting. For instance, Al-Khayf Mosque in Mina, where it's reported that 70 prophets, peace be upon them, performed prayers. The Holy Area Mosque, the only mosque in Muzdalifah. Namra Mosque, the mosque in Arafah, built on the site where the Prophet, peace be upon him, gave his farewell sermon. Slaughterhouses, where the required animal sacrifices for pilgrims are generally carried out. The next thing that probably comes to mind is how far are these places from one another? Well, from the Kaaba to the Jamrah is approximately 4.7 kilometers or 2.9 miles. From the Jamrah to the approximate center of Mina is about 2.5 kilometers or 1.6 miles. From the center of Mina to the Holy Areas Mosque is approximately 3.5 kilometers or 2.2 miles. From the Holy Areas Mosque to Namra Mosque is approximately 6.8 kilometers or 4.2 miles. And from Namra Mosque to Mount Arafah is approximately 2.3 kilometers or 1.4 miles. At this stage, if you're like me, you're probably trying to equate the distances to times it would take to walk. Well, think no further. Sample times in minutes are being shown on the screen now. It's important to note that these times will vary widely depending on your walking speed and, more importantly, the crowds. But if walking is not your forte, or you don't fancy sitting in traffic, there may be another option. In recent years, a mass transit light rail link has been established from Mina to Arafah, with a number of stations dotted throughout the precincts. So remember to ask your guide about this to see if this is a viable option. Now the moment we've all been waiting for, a step-by-step walkthrough of the entire Hajj. For Hajj Tamattu, this involves doing Umrah first and then Hajj after. But before we get into the details, it all starts with the pilgrim leaving home and commencing their journey to Makkah. During the journey, the pilgrim will arrive at a specially designated location known as a Maqat. The significance of the Maqat is that the pilgrim should not pass it without adopting ihram. So after completing some prerequisite preparations, including wearing special clothes for males, the pilgrim will enter the state of ihram by making the niyyah for Umrah. Once in the state of ihram, the pilgrim is known as a muhrim, and this is accompanied by a number of restrictions and prohibitions. At this stage, the pilgrim is ready to continue the journey and will start reciting a set of special phrases collectively known as the talbiyah, whilst making their way from the Maqat to Makkah. Upon arriving in Makkah, the first step is Umrah. This involves doing tawaf, which consists of circumambulating the Kaaba 7 times and then performing 2 rak'ah prayer. Tawaf is then followed by the ritual of sa'i, which is conducted by traveling 7 times between the hills of Safa and Marwa. Following this, the pilgrim will then cut their hair, which releases them from the state of ihram and marks the completion of Umrah. So this is the first phase of Hajj Tamattu complete. The pilgrim now has time to enjoy Makkah and Masjid al-Haram to the fullest while they wait for Hajj to start. The 8th of Zulhijjah, also known as the Day of Quenching, marks the start of Hajj. On this day, the pilgrim re-enters into the state of ihram from wherever they are within Makkah, with the niyyah for Hajj. Talbiyah is now recited by all pilgrims as they head from Makkah to Mina after sunrise. In Mina, all prayers are performed on time, but Zohar, Asr and Isha are shortened to 2 rak'ah each. On day 2, the 9th of Zulhijjah, known as the day of standing at Arafah, after performing Salat al-Fajr in Mina and waiting until after sunrise, the pilgrim leaves Mina for Arafah. Due to the traffic, it's difficult to predict the time of arrival, but most pilgrims arrive prior to or just after Zohar, depending on the time they left Mina. There is a khutbah before the Salah in Masjid Namrah, the big masjid in Arafah, built on the place where the Prophet, peace be upon him, stood and delivered his khutbah during his farewell Hajj. For those who are in the masjid or are within hearing distance, listen attentively to the khutbah. After the khutbah, the pilgrim prays Zohar and Asr Salah, joined and shortened to 2 rak'ah each, with 1 azan and 2 aqamas. The time between Zohar and Maghrib is then spent in sincere supplication, zikr, etc., and not sleeping or idle talk. Immediately after sunset, the pilgrims start leaving Arafah for Muzdalifah. This process is known as Nafara. The distance to Muzdalifah is only about 9 kilometers or 6 miles. However, this journey can take from 1 hour to 16 hours depending on the traffic and where you are located in Arafah. At Muzdalifah, the pilgrim prays Maghrib and Isha together, 1 adhan and 2 aqamas, after which they find a nice comfortable place on the ground to rest and sleep. The sight in Muzdalifah is like no other. It is a flat plain, and as you look far and wide, all you see are pilgrims in their white ihrams, a sight worth remembering. In addition to resting, the pilgrim may also optionally collect their stones for Rami here in Muzdalifah, or this can also be done later in Mina. Hold on, you're probably wondering what Rami is. Don't worry, we haven't covered it yet, but for now, it's essentially casting of 7 pebbles at the Jamrah in Mina. Day 3, the 10th of Zulhijjah, is known as the day of sacrifice, or Eid day for the non-pilgrims. After performing Fajr Salah and supplicating in Muzdalifah, the pilgrim sets out for Mina shortly before sunrise. The Talbiyah is still recited at this time by the pilgrims. All the pilgrims head for the largest Jamrah, known as Al-Aqaba, where they perform Rami, which is casting of 7 pebbles, one at a time at the Jamrah. After the Rami, the pilgrim stops the Talbiyah and starts reciting Takbir. Also, after the Rami, the pilgrim performs the slaughtering of a sheep or goat, which is known as the Hadi. After this, the male pilgrims shave or cut their hair, whilst female pilgrims only cut approximately 1 inch of hair. The pilgrim is now free from all ihram restrictions except marital relations, which are lifted after the Tawaf of Hajj, which is commonly referred to as Tawaf al-Ifada. The pilgrim can now wear normal clothes and should continue to recite the takbir as often as possible, especially after the Fard prayers, until after Asr on the 13th of Zulhijjah. The pilgrim now heads for Makkah to perform the second most important pillar of Hajj, Tawaf al-Ifada, which is sometimes referred to as the Tawaf al-Hajj or Tawaf al-Ziyarah. This, like all tawafs, is done by completing 7 circumambulations of the Kaaba and then performing 2 rak'ah salah, preferably at or behind Maqam Ibrahim. For the Mutamatiyah, this is then followed by the ritual of Sa'i, which is 7 circuits between the hills of Safa and Marwa. On completion of this, the pilgrim is now free from all ihram restrictions, and they will then return to Mina to spend the next 2 or 3 days and nights. Day 4, 11th Zulhijjah, is day 1 of Tashriq. It is important for the pilgrim to spend the nights and most of the time, if not all, in Mina during the next 2 or 3 days. In Mina, the pilgrim collects their pebbles, if they haven't already done so in Muzdalifah, to Rami all 3 Jamrah. It will be 7 pebbles for each of the 3 Jamrah. So if the pilgrim stays 2 days, then they'll need a total of 42 pebbles, or 63 pebbles for 3 days. It is always useful to have a few spare, and also remember to pay attention to the size. After Zawal, the pilgrim proceeds to Rami, starting with the small Jamrah, followed by Dua facing Qibla, then the middle one, followed by Dua facing Qibla, and finishing with the big one. But there's no Dua after this one. It's important to note, Rami is not to be done prior to Zawal time for all 3 days, but can be done at night due to overcrowding. Actually, recently the Saudi authorities have allocated time slot to groups when Rami can be completed, so the pilgrim will be restricted in the time they can perform this rite. The rest of the day and night is spent in Mina, in praise of Allah. If the pilgrim did not perform Tawaf al-Ifada the previous day, they may do so on this day. Day 5, 12th Zulhijjah, day 2 of Tashriq. On this day, the pilgrim does the same as the day before. On completion of the Rami, the pilgrim is allowed to leave Mina for Makkah if they so desire. The pilgrim who wishes to leave should do so prior to Maghrib, otherwise the pilgrim should stay until the next day. If the pilgrim did not perform Tawaf al-Ifada on the previous day, they may do so on this day. Day 6, 13th Zulhijjah, day 3 of Tashriq. On this day, the pilgrim does the same as the day before. Rami is also after Zawal on this day, contrary to many Hajj books, which indicate that it can be done in the morning. On completion of the Rami, the pilgrim now leaves Mina for Makkah. Hajj is nearly complete, just one last rite. Whether having left Mina on day 5 or day 6, once in Makkah, when the pilgrim is ready to leave the city, the last rite to be performed is the farewell Tawaf, or Tawaf al-Wada. Tawaf al-Wada is a wajib act of Hajj, meaning that it is required. For those pilgrims who stay for a few days longer in Makkah, they only perform Tawaf al-Wada prior to leaving Makkah. Having completed Tawaf al-Wada, Hajj is now complete. May Allah accept it.
Now that we've seen Hajj step by step and also by location, before we finish off, let's quickly look at it in a slightly different way in terms of rites and rituals performed. So in relation to Hajj Tamattu, So the main rites and rituals that comprise for Hajj Tamattu include: you'll perform 3 tawafs. First tawaf is tawaf for Umrah. The second tawaf is tawaf for Ifada, which is tawaf for Hajj or tawaf for Ziyarah. The third tawaf is tawaf al-Wida, which is the farewell tawaf, which is the last rite of Hajj. You'll perform 2 sa'i. One is the first sa'i for Umrah, and then the second is the pull of Hajj, the sa'i for Hajj. You'll perform at least 1 animal sacrifice, which is referred to as the hadi for Hajj Tamattu. And you'll be stoning the Jamarat on either 2 or 3 days, depending on how long you stay in Mina.
This brings us to the end of part 2. Thanks for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you in part 3. Remember to visit our websites, which may have additional resources accompanying this presentation. All praises due to Allah, our Creator and Sustainer, Lord of the worlds.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك